Now we have the ground tissue. The ground tissue is the tissue in which cells differentiate to develop into the permanent tissues. We've discussed earlier that the permanent tissues originate from the meristematic tissues. I believe that this question, if they tell you what is the origin of the permanent tissues, there should be two correct answers. One is the meristematic tissue, and the second being the gram tissue. But this is also going to depend on how they phrase it. How are they going to phrase the question? For example, if they phrase it like the permanent tissues in the growing apices or in the terminal or top or lateral buds, the answer is meristematic tissue. But if they ask about the permanent tissue in the parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma, the answer is gram tissue. The gram tissue forms internal tissue masses in the roots, stems, and leaves in the form of cortex, pith, and pith rays. The cortex is the region between the epidermis and the vascular tissue. It's made mostly of parenchyma cells. The function is storage, sometimes support, sometimes photosynthesis. It really depends on the plant part. But always remember that the cortex is the outer ground tissue zone. Okay, so the cortex is the outer chunk before the vascular bundle. The pith is the central core, usually in the middle of the stem. Again, mostly parenchyma. Its main role is storage and keeping the stem filled out. So remember that the pith is the central spongy tissue. Okay, the pith is the plant's stuffing. And finally is the pith rays or medullary rays. These are thin radial lines of parenchyma cells that connect the cortex to the pith. Think of them like bridges of pathways. They help with lateral transport of water and nutrients. Remember that the pith rays are horizontal highways inside the stem. The permanent tissues in the plant body differentiate into the following types. So we're going to have first the parenchyma, collenchyma, and then the sclerenchyma. The parenchyma cells are living cells with thin, fine or delicate cell walls. They're often polygonal or spherical in shape due to the pressure from the neighboring cells. Now here we actually have a question. They will tell you, justify that the parenchyma cells are often polygonal or spherical in shape. This is an actual justification question that we had before. And the answer is that due to the pressure from the neighboring cells. There are intercellular spaces between the cells, and each cell contains a vacuole. Parenchyma cells may also contain plastids, such as chloroplasts. In this case, they're referred to as chlorenchyma. Parenchyma cells have several functions, the most important of which are ventilation, nutrient storage, and nutrient transport, or delivery of nutrients. Just a quick note. The book phrases the vacuole location weirdly, almost saying the vacuoles are located in the space between the cells. Just a heads up, if a question asks about the vacuole's location, they're located inside the cell, not in the spaces between the cells. Next, we have the collenchyma. Collenchyma tissue consists of living, elongated cells with irregularly thickened walls. These tissues are found in the woody parts of plants and also occur in the mature organs of herbaceous plants. Collenchyma tissue is the primary supporting tissue in many stems and leaves, especially in mature ones. Collenchyma tissues rarely occur in the roots and leaves of monocotyledon plants. So here you can actually have blank questions, the monocotyledon or monocotyledonous plant being the blank. The main function of collenchyma tissue is to provide structural support and strength. The thickness of the cell walls and their specific distribution help the tissue perform these functions effectively. And finally, we have the sclerenchyma. The sclerenchyma tissue is composed of dead cells with very thick cell walls due to the presence of lignin. These cells vary in shape, origin, composition, and formation. The main function of sclerenchyma is to provide strength and structural support, and there are two types of sclerenchyma cells. First, we have fibers. These cells of the cells of this type are long and cylindrical, sometimes taper at the ends. They're found individually or in bundles and parts of the plant body that require support. And the second cell is the scleriad. These cells are short and occur in certain fruits such as pears. Now we've read the script, and now let's look at the questions, the important questions that we can get, like how do we expect the questions, how are they going to present in the exam. Of course, the important question that we can get is, what is the type of tissue for each of the following? And they will tell you pears or pear fruits. As mentioned here, it's sclerenchyma tissue and scleriad cells. Okay, so you write down sclerenchyma tissue, scleriads in the brackets. Cortex, of course, it's ground tissue. Pith and pith rays, ground tissue. Scleriad, sclerenchyma. Internal tissue masses in the roots or in stems or leaves. Of course, the type of tissue here being gram tissue. Type of tissue and fibers or fiber cells. Now, this can make a very, very weird question, but it's not impossible. They love these questions. If they tell you just fiber, the answer would most likely be sclerenchyma, referring to this fiber cell. And woody parts of plants, it's the collenchyma mentioned here. We said that collenchyma. We said that they are found in woody parts of plants and the mature organs of the herbaceous plants. And of course, the mature organs of herbaceous plants, the type of tissue here being what? Collenchyma. Make sure to repeat these questions, play with them, maybe read them randomly, not necessarily in this order, like just quiz yourself. Make your own tables in your own paper, because this is going to be extremely important question. Like every single one of here is either a previous question or a potential question. So every example here is extremely important, and you need to read it very carefully. Question: what is the origin of, or who is responsible for, each of the following permanent tissues? Permanent tissues, as we discussed earlier, we were going to have two possible questions, either gram tissue or meristematic tissue. Most likely is going to depend on how are they going to phrase the question. But generally speaking, I would go with gram tissue. Gram tissue being more correct answer than meristematic tissue. The parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma, they're the permanent tissues of the gram tissue. And the sclerenchyma, of course, the sclerenchyma is also the permanent tissue of the gram tissue, which is a type of parenchyma that contains chloroplasts. And the pith rays, what is the origin of pith rays? This is a previous question, very important one. Gram tissue. They can ask you a question telling you to give an example for each of the following. And they would tell you a type of cell found individually or in bundles in parts of the plant that require support. This is just describing the fiber cell of sclerenchyma. It's very possible to get questions like this. Question: what is the location and function of parenchyma tissue? The location is in roots, stems, and leaves. This can be a vague one because it's not really directly mentioned in the book, but this is actually a previous question, so you need to take care of this one. The function mentioned, as we mentioned earlier, ventilation, nutrient storage, and delivery of nutrients. And if the parenchyma cells contain chloroplasts, they will perform photosynthesis. So this is the fourth function. If they ask you about the function of the parenchyma tissue, we have 4 functions. The classic 3, and the 4th one being photosynthesis only in the case of the presence of chloroplasts. Question: what is the function for each of the following? Parenchyma, the function is strength and structural support. Sclerenchyma, same function, strength and structural support. What are the characteristics or features for each of the following? The fiber cells. Extremely important questions. The fiber cell, just write down what you know about it. We've discussed it. We said that the cell are long. The cells here are long and cylindrical, sometimes tapered at the end. They're found individually or in bundles in parts of the plant that require support. So this is the location of the fiber cell. And the scleriate, the characteristic or feature of scleriates, they're cells that are short and occur in certain fruits such as pears. Very important question that you can get is asking you about the location and function for the parenchyma. Now the location is in the woody parts of the plant and in the mature organs of herbaceous plants, and the function is going to be strength and support. It's easy to remember this. And for the sclerenchyma, the location is going to depend on the cell type, so whether if it was fiber or scleria is going to differ. So in the fiber, we're going to have in parts of the plant that require support, and scleria, it's going to be in certain fruits such as pears. And the function of the sclerenchyma in general, it's strength and support. Very important question that we can get is the comparison questions. You can get any 2 of the 3 tissue types here, and they will ask you to compare them. They're very important, and you need to read this table very carefully. It will be in the PDF. You can find it down below. Question: they're telling you to justify or explain. The parenchyma cells are often polygonal or spherical in shape. We've discussed this earlier. We said that it's due to the pressure from the neighboring cells. Justify: the main function of parenchyma tissue is to provide structural support and strength. Like they're asking you why. Okay, they're asking you why is the function of parenchyma is support and strength. Due to the thickness of the cell walls. Okay, that's the answer. That's the official answer that we got. It's due to the thickness of the cell walls and their specific distribution in the plant. This is what making it able to give this specific function, which is the strength and support. Question: Who's responsible for the herbaceous stems' strength? Or justify the herbaceous stems or any mature herbaceous organ are strong due to the presence of the parenchyma tissue. Okay, so no matter how weird the question sounds here, as long as they're a previous question, they're important to read, and you have to memorize them. Let's look at the question here. They're telling you to justify that the parenchyma tissue is abundant in herbaceous plants. It sounds weird, I know. And the answer is actually weirder. Like you just say, okay, due to its function, parenchyma tissue provides strength and structural support in plants. So due to its function, it is found in herbaceous plants. It's weird, but we cannot do anything about it. Okay, those are the questions that we have. If they ask you about the function of either fiber cell or scleriates, it's strength and structural support. That's the answer. I just want to note something here, that lignification, which is the process of deposition of lignin in the cell wall, is eventually going to lead to cell death. So if they possibly ask you a question telling you to justify that the sclerenchyma cells are dead cells, like why are they dead cells? The answer is going to be due to the presence of lignin, because the process of lignification is going to lead to cell death. Question: fiber cells provide strength and firmness to the structure in which they are found. The answer is going to be because fiber cells are long and cylindrical. Sometimes taper at the end. They are found individually or in bundles in parts of the plant body that require support. And this is a justification question, by the way. They're telling you to justify. And finally, we have the epidermis. The epidermis is the tissue that covers the plant body and forms the permanent dermal tissue. The epidermis is a single layer of thickened cells covering the primary body of the plant. The epidermal cells are flat and tightly connected to each other, with no intercellular space between them. The epidermis serves several functions, so the functions are very important. So you will say that it protects the plant body, regulates gas exchange through pairs of guard cells, and control the water absorption. Also, a very important definition question you can get is the epidermis. So they will tell you to define the epidermis.